Hello, everyone. And of course, I'm saying hello to the people who are watching the replay. I just went live, so I'm waiting to see who is going to pop up tonight. But I hope that you all have been doing well. We have someone who joined us. Hello. And I hope that as a whole, everyone has been doing really, really well. I have. If you watched my last live video, I gave an update on where I have been and what's been going on. And this video is kind of a continuation of that to touch on some things that I mentioned in a little bit more detail. So, as always, we are going to wait a few more minutes just to see if we get some more people who pop up, and then we are going to get started. And whatever you guys hear in the background, just ignore it. So I'm gonna talk over the background noise while we wait for people to come in because it's loud to me. So I don't know if you guys can hear it. But just in case you did not watch my last live video, which was Can We Talk? I'm Back. Those are the videos that I do whenever I don't have a clear theme, or either it's something that doesn't really fit with my Let It Go Wednesday, or it doesn't fit with Pick My Brain, which is on my business channel at Masterpieces Writing. And I was basically just giving an update because before Hurricane Ida came, I had planned on restarting my live videos in the month of September, but that did not happen. And even though I had a lot of content planned for the month of September, I didn't get to release it. But once I was reviewing it during my time off, I was like, I feel differently about it now. And I've been able to regroup. So the things that you are seeing now, these are things that came to me either during the storm, after the storm, or here recently. So I just wanted to share my experiences with you all. Because, like I always say, as I am learning and growing, I want to share everything that I am learning with you so that you can grow with me. And I think that's a fair deal. It's a fair trade. So it is 6:03, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if you are just now popping in, welcome. And I really do appreciate you guys for sticking with me because I know my schedule is kind of all over the place. But ideally, after the holidays, it should get back to a regular schedule. But of course, we have to let the holidays pop in because all next week I am going to be out of the office, so I cannot wait for Friday, so I can just relax and enjoy my time off. And even though I've been able to take more time off after the storm because I've changed my schedule around, like, it's still nice to have absolutely positively nothing to do. So I am definitely looking forward to doing that. But I have got to tell you guys about the email that I sent my mailing list yesterday. So, if you watched my last live video, I mentioned that journaling was definitely a saving grace for me during the storm because it was a lot of crazy things going on and it definitely tested my patience a lot. And I had just gotten a copy of my sister's journal, Journaling Through It. If you haven't gotten your copy, go to the link in my bio and go to my portfolio and get yours. But it came right on time because the day after Hurricane Ida is when I started journaling. And I had been journaling on and off throughout the years. I guess you can say probably the most consistent, because even though I still wasn't consistent at the time, was in 2018. But then I kind of slacked off, then I picked it up. But at the end of last year, December 2020, is when I really made it a point to journal. And during that time, if you watch my previous videos, then you will know that it was coming after a breakup. So I was chronicling my experiences dealing with a breakup, how I was changing things that I was noticing, things that I could have done differently, and of course within that, there was still a lot of growth that needed to happen before I could really see the big picture. So even though I was figuring out a lot of things, there still was a lot that I just did not know. A lot of things that were just like, wait a minute, what? I don't get it. The light bulb still had not gone off. And in June is when I started therapy. So, especially after starting therapy, things started to become much, much, much clearer. So, when the storm hit, when I tell y'all the level of clarity that I had, like, it really blew my mind, which is what inspired this video. So if you see the title, it is entitled Dear Past, Present, and Future. And it's more so like a love story that I had with journaling, which parallels my love story. And not just with other people, but the love story that I have with myself. So someone else joined. Hello. So, just to give you guys an idea of what was going on during the storm. So, of course, we were without electricity for 2 weeks, without internet and cable for five. So things were kind of crazy, but of course, I didn't panic in that department because I was prepared due to living through Hurricane Katrina. So I read a lot, I journaled a lot, I wrote a lot. And in my journaling, I realized just how much more I needed to release. Even though I had already released a lot of things, I was still holding on to a lot of things. And during the storm, I was working on a client's manuscript, and she had this beautiful letter that she included in her book. And I will not tell you guys what the letter was about, but it really touched me. And it touched me so much that I realized, like, I need to get back to writing letters. So, just to take you back to the past for a little bit, in 2017 is when I began to write letters, not only to myself, but to other people. And of course, in these letters, I knew that these people probably were not going to get it, so they were letters that I wrote and just held on to. And the one that I wrote about myself was not that nice of a letter at all. At that time, even though I had tricked myself into believing that I loved myself, which I clearly did not, but I was just so harsh to myself about a lot of the mistakes that I had made in the past, even things I did when I was a child, things that literally, like, I did not know any better. Like you're just mimicking what you see. Like I was so hard on myself, right? But whatever I had written in this letter, I labeled myself as that, and I believed it wholeheartedly. And to me, that was taking accountability. But nah, it wasn't. Really loving myself and accepting the fact that I had made those mistakes. That would have been loving myself. But during that time, I also wrote a letter to Bay. And if you watch my older videos, Bay is my ex-boyfriend. And that letter was very accusatory. Because again, I'm in this battle with myself at the time. So guess what? I have to be in a battle with someone else. So the letter that I wrote him was very, very accusatory. It's like, okay, so yeah, I did this, but you could have not done this and you could have not done that, right? However, I knew I could not send that letter. So I held on to it for a couple of months, that letter and the one I wrote about myself, and I hid it from myself for a few months. But December 31st, 2017, and this was after me having a dream that was giving me a little bit more clarity, I was like, okay, you can release it. So I read the letter one more time, then I released it. And I held on to the letter that I wrote myself a little bit longer. And I don't remember exactly when I got rid of that letter, but once I got to a certain level of acceptance, because again, we're not fully there yet at this point, I was like, okay, I can let this go. However, in letting that go, I was able to write the letter that really was me just fully expressing myself to my ex boyfriend. Trying to hash out the things that happened in the past and just being open and honest about how I really felt about him. And of course, that opened the door to a relationship. However, in the midst of that relationship, a lot of other things started to come up. And I've mentioned before that he was incarcerated at the time, so a lot of our correspondence was on the phone and writing letters. And when I tell y'all, that was such a crazy time for me because it was so many things that were coming up that I thought I was not bothered by anymore. Things that I thought were not even an issue for me. Guess what? They came up. And he was always like reminding me that you speak better whenever you write. It's like you're better able to communicate. And I told him, it's like, well, that's because I'm not busy worried about what the other person is thinking. I can write freely. Hey, Portia. And I was like, there's no one around to distract me. I can say whatever I need to say without anyone having a commentary about it. I don't have to worry about being rejected. It's like, it's just for me to be free in that space. And of course, over time, I did improve whenever I did communicate verbally. However, I still communicated my best whenever I wrote. And of course, when there were times when I felt as if there were certain things that I needed to just keep to myself, I would journal about them. So in 2018 is when I started a journal. However, in this journal. I still was not keeping it 100. I would tell some of the truth, but not all of the truth. I would take accountability for some of the things I did, but not all of it. And I mentioned this in the email that I sent my mailing list, and it was like, how can you expect yourself to be honest, to be truthful, when it's like you can't even do that with just yourself? So, how can you do that with other people? It's pretty much impossible. And how I used to write, I would write as if someone was over my shoulder, like someone who was peeping in and trying to see what I was writing, as if like all my dirty little secrets would be exposed if someone got my journal, which is the craziest thing ever, right? And a few months ago, I read over those journal entries that I wrote like all those years ago, and I was like, wow, wow. Even though I knew what was between the lines, it's like, girl, you were doing yourself a major disservice by not being open, by not being honest. So, getting back to that time period, so 2018, 2019, I would journal on and off, however, still in this battle with myself. So it's like there's still things that I was missing. Even though I was clearing out space from things that were from the past, I was collecting new baggage in the present at that time. And of course, like I mentioned to you guys, at the end of last year, that's when I left my relationship. And that's a whole other story. But I began to journal again at that point. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so this is a new beginning, me being single. So it's like, let me take this time to really rediscover myself, to get back to myself. However, I did not know that I would be in for a very, very rude awakening. And I cannot wait to share that with you guys. Hello, someone else joined. I cannot wait to share that with you all because I actually do want to share those journals. And it's more so to just help you guys see, like, whenever you are in a similar space. And I wanted to follow like a certain pattern. I'm not going to tell you too many details now, but when you guys actually see what I'm doing, like, you are going to love it because we have all been there. Pretty much when we're lying to ourselves, when it's everyone else who's the problem and not ourselves. And again, like I said, like I'm writing, there's no one around. Like I couldn't even be fully honest. Even though that was the most honest I had been, it still wasn't as honest as I needed to be. So, fast forward to September 2021. I'm in the aftermath of Hurricane Ida, and like I told you, I was working on this book and I just read this beautifully written letter. So it's like, okay, I need to get back to doing this. There are some things I still need to tap into. So, I wrote a letter to my future, and I'm not going to disclose what was in it, but I will be sure to give you guys an update whenever it happens. But it was me right here, right now, speaking to myself in the future. Once I have really healed, once I have really been able to work through all the issues that I've had, when I'm fully able to carry all the things that I know that I am deserving of having, and a lot of the times, you hear the saying, to whom much is given, much is required. And sometimes it just feels like that burden is just too much. But it's like, no, I know at that point I will be equipped to carry it. I will be equipped to handle it because I'm doing the work right here, right now. So in writing that letter, it made me think about a letter that I wrote in March of this year. And it was an intentions letter. And of course, like I said, at this point, I'm not going to say I was delusional, but I still wasn't really in reality at the time. Because with anyone who's going through a breakup, like there's still the hope that it's like, okay, so we might work our way back to each other. So it's like, let me still plan out my life as if this person's going to be in it. And a lot of what is in my intentions letter reflects around that, right? And during the time that I was writing this new letter, I was like, I don't know, like that, it might be kind of far fetched because you didn't know what you know now at the time, so you might want to rewrite that. However, before I even went to even go find where I stashed the letter, I got the thought that I needed to go back. Instead of writing to the future, it's like, okay, we still have something that we need to revisit. So I almost always have like not a recurring dream, but I just have dreams that have a very similar theme. Like I'm back in school. Most of the time it's high school. The people that I went to school with are there, and my first boyfriend is there. And that's a big step for me to even acknowledge him as that because for the longest time he was my so-called first boyfriend. That's how I referred to him instead of just acknowledging the fact like, nah, that's just what he is. He was your first boyfriend. But Because I've been working through some things, I can acknowledge that, right? So, oftentimes, whatever happens in this dream is something weird, is something awkward. And for a very, very long time, I carried around a lot of guilt for how life fared out for him, And of course, it was unfortunate how things worked out. But when I was, what, like 19, 20, like at the time I was first starting to hear about things that were going on with him, my ego was telling me, well, you know what, girl, that's what he get for not doing you right. He should have did right, this, that, or whatever. You know how your ego does, especially at that age. And oftentimes, like whenever people would tell me things, sometimes I would laugh, I would sniggle, I would giggle, but over time, guilt started to sink in. And in a lot of ways, I started to feel responsible in some way, knowing that I had absolutely positively nothing to do with the outcome of his life, but I just felt responsible. And like I said, in these dreams, I would be reminded of that. Like there was still something there that had not fully been closed. So no closure was there. Like how you just stop talking to a person and you're like out of sight, out of mind. But there was still something. It's like, okay, so for this person to keep popping up, something must still be there, right? So one thing that I realized is like, okay, it's not possible for you to talk to him right now. Like I said, because of how things have fared out for him. So it's like, all right, but you need to get this out. So if you were able to have a conversation with him, what would the conversation be? And that's what I wrote in this letter. And when I tell y'all, like, it was a very emotional letter because I had to tap back into who I was at 16, who was not that nice of a person. She was a very, very insecure girl who was lying to herself and telling herself she had this newfound sense of self confidence, this newfound sense of independence, when really she just used other people to make her feel better about herself. So, like I said, it was very emotional having to go back there. But the one thing that I realized in writing that letter, the one thing that I wish I would have done more of, I wish I would have been kinder to him more. And something that simple, because how you speak to people communicates how you really feel about them. When you say that you're with a person and you care about them, it's like you don't speak down to them, you speak like over them. And of course, now I know at 16 there was no way I even knew how to do that because I couldn't even do it with myself. But I really do wish, like, I was kinder to him, that I would have applauded him more instead of, and it wasn't necessarily tearing him down, but I wasn't as supportive. Because you know how you have the people who are like, regardless of what happens, it's like, that's my man, and I'm sticking by him. Like, even if he's dead wrong, like, I wasn't that type of girlfriend. I was like, look, I don't know why you tripping over this, that it ain't like you so and so, And really what that was me reacting to how he would interact with me because he knew my insecurities. He knew them and he knew how to tap into them. He knew it. So I guess in a lot of ways that was me like still trying to feel like I was in control of the situation when in reality neither one of us were, you know. And the crazy thing about it is that he plays a big role in the relationship that I had with my ex-boyfriend. So like he played a very, very major role in us even being a thing. And I didn't even really realize that. And the crazy thing about it is like they have the same first and last initials. And it's like, wow, wow, wow. And I would say them, but not gonna do that. But the people who know me, they know who I'm talking about. And it's so crazy how life can happen because had I not been open to being with my first boyfriend, like I would have never been open to the experience of being with my ex-boyfriend. And I know that may sound weird, you know. However, it's the absolute truth, you know. And when you realize things like that, like, wow, like that was the point that you served. Like really just opening me up to the experience because I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys, but I did not talk to anybody. Like outside of me talking to guys at school, like nobody had my number because I didn't want to give out my number because before I got a cell phone, all we could do was talk on the house phone. And I knew my mama was a snoop. So it's like, look, I don't want nobody to pick up the phone embarrassing me. So I'm going to just hold out and wait. And I didn't get my first phone until I was 15, you know. So no one got my number and talked to me until then. So all of this was a new experience. When I tell y'all, it was like I was just thrown out there, like just trying to navigate how do you have relationships with other people outside of your family? Like, I honestly did not know. I did not know. And it was a lot of mistakes that I made because of that. However, and making a lot of mistakes that helped me realize like what I needed to do differently going forward. And the crazy thing is that I realized like even though I had grown and matured a lot from that 16-year-old girl, she still was there. She still was there, and she would creep up. And she crept up a lot in my last relationship. And I did not even realize like how much she was still there. And the funny thing about it, so my ex-boyfriend even mentioned, so the first boyfriend came up in conversation one day and I said something negative. And he corrected me. He was like, but you do know he was good though, because he was an athlete. And it was me trying to make it seem like, well, he wasn't all that. you know. And it's just because I didn't like the fact that he thought highly of himself, right? So that's why I had that attitude. But he reminded me, it's like, nah, but he was good though. So it's like, hmm. If he has to remind me to give him his props, it's like, wait a minute, like I need to check myself because I didn't realize I was still doing that. And even with my ex-boyfriend, it was a lot of things that even though I had worked through in the past, still a part of me had not fully let them go, had not fully accepted him for who he fully is, had not really forgiven him for things that he had done. And I had a very bad judgmental spirit. I don't know if I mentioned that to you guys before. But it was like nothing for me to judge a person. Oh, so you did that? Oh, so you ain't know not to do that? Instead of looking at myself, like you were in the same boat. It just looked different, you know? So even though, yes, I did cry a lot while writing that letter, it was such a good release for me to really tap into the fact that, yes, I did love him. And yes, I still do love him. I still do care about his well being. And I really do hope that there is a change in his life and that he does get to just live happy, you know. But I did thank him, you know, for being the person who introduced me to like what it is to actually have a dynamic between a man and a woman, even though we were kids, you know. But that was my first experience with it. And I know had I not been open to it with him, I would not have been open to it with anyone else. And especially the relationship that absolutely just changed everything for me, that just opened my eyes like in ways I never thought was even possible. So I didn't even know that that letter was so necessary and so needed until it existed, you know. And I read it, cried, ripped it up, threw it away. It's like, okay, I don't have to deal with that anymore. It's like I can free myself from that. So right after I threw that letter away, I went to the folder where I had my intentions letter stashed. Remember, that's the letter that I wrote in March of this year. And as soon as I put my hand on it, I clearly heard a voice say, leave it. And I'm like, but no, like, I was a different person at the time that I wrote it, so I want to write a new one. But all I heard was leave it. And to me, that was clearly God speaking to me, letting me know, like, the person that you are right now is deserving of what's in that letter. So leave it. So leave it. Even though at the time I was not fully there. Like, I was not fully at the point to where it's like, okay, this is real. Because it kind of was like a fantasy. But it's like now, because of all the things that I worked through, it's like, okay, all right, I'll leave it. I'll leave it. And it's not even about like if all of the things that are in this intentions letter come true. It's like I'm believing that it will, you know, and most of the time that's really what it's all about because when I tell y'all and having gone through all of these things, it's like I'm finally realizing what it really means to have faith, finally realizing what it means to be patient, to really just wait and to wait gracefully. Because before I still was trying to recapture something, you know, trying to have like whatever fantasy I had in my head years ago, even if it had changed, it's like let me hold on to it just a little bit, you know, and that's why I would make these not so great choices, you know, that would lead to these unwise decisions, you know, and it's like now I can just be at peace with where I am and really just make good with where I am. Because even now, it's so crazy how I can look back to where I was a year ago. And even though I was getting some clarity on things, I didn't want to hear it. Didn't want to hear it because I was focused on like, okay, so when am I going to get what I always wanted? How long I got to wait? I already waited long enough, you know, and a lot of that did lead to the breakup. But now being on the other side, it's like I'm grateful. So grateful that I'm not still thinking that way. I'm not that same person, even though, yes, that person is a part of me, but I'm not her. I was her. but I'm not her now. And that's just the beauty of it, you know, and being able to revisit the past, but not wish it were still here, to look forward to the future, but not distract myself with it to where I can't pay attention to what's in front of me right now. And all of that has been made possible for me just through journaling, just through writing out my thoughts. And when I tell y'all, like, the more that you are able to clear out, it's like you make room for so many more things. And it's like when I tell y'all, it's like I can really see things like so differently now. So differently. And it's like the biggest thing is just really learning to see myself differently. You know, being able to put myself back into those spaces and know it's okay. It's okay. Because look at where you are now. Like, you're okay. And you are going to be okay going forward. You know, so if any of you have been struggling with letting go of the past, if you're not content with where you are right now in the present, or if the future just seems so far away from you, it's like just take a moment to write it all out on paper. And I am telling y'all, it's like the more that you do it, like the more that you will gain from it. Like, it's really amazing when I look back on things that I have written like years ago, like even months ago. Because, like I told you, I still was a different person at the top of the year. When I look back on things that I wrote, it's like, oh my God. And I think I mentioned this in my last live video. It's like, I really cannot believe like I had that amount of clarity, even though things were still foggy for me. Like, even though I still was battling through a lot of things. But that's what I'm telling you. It's like the mind is a very powerful thing, you know, and it only believes what we feed it, you know. And if we allow ourselves to cloud our brains with a lot of bad judgment, with a lot of bad decisions, a lot of bad memories, that's what it is going to hold on to. But whenever you are forcing it to shift its focus to think on things that are more positive, to focus on things that are actually true, not things that are made up, things that are actually true, it is amazing the transformation that you will go through. And even with me being in therapy, it's like, oh my God, like, why didn't I do this sooner? But even with that, I am appreciative of the fact that, like, okay, I'm there now. So even though that is one of the things, like, I wish I would have done sooner, you know, but I'm so glad that I did it at the time that I did, because I probably wouldn't be as appreciative of it. And one of the main things that I'm focused on in therapy is desensitizing all of those negative thoughts and reprogramming my brain, you know. And it's almost like restoring it to factory reset. Wait, or is it default? I don't know. Y'all know what I mean. But getting it back to what it was intended to be before it got polluted with all the things of the world, before it got polluted with other people's opinions and thoughts of me, other people's judgment of me, just getting it back to what God intended for it to be so that I can clearly see his vision for my life. So that is my dear past, present, and future. And I honestly hope that this video has touched someone. And get out that pen and paper. You know, that's how I signed off on the email. Get out that pen and paper. It's like you would be surprised what you would even write. Like, you don't even have to have any specific thought in mind. Like, just write, just free yourself from so many things, especially if you are carrying around a lot of hurt, a lot of bitterness, disappointment, unforgiveness. Like, right. Trust me. Like, it will definitely free you from so many things. Trust me. I guarantee it. So thank you guys for tuning in with me tonight. It feels good to be back. And I will be on at Masterpieces Writing tomorrow at 6 p.m. with You Don't Have to Be a Writer to Be an Entrepreneur. And if you are interested in writing a book, but you're not really a fan of having to write it, I got you. There are some ways around that, trust me. So tune in to my Pick My Brain at Masterpieces Writing on Instagram at 6 p.m. tomorrow. And I need y'all to remind me that tomorrow is the versus battle with Shaka Khan and Stephanie Mills. So please remind me, because it will be shortly after I get off a live, and I can easily get distracted. So please remind me. And let me know in the comments who you got, you know. Even though I know it's not like a battle per se, it's just a celebration. But I absolutely love Stephanie Mills. So that's who I am looking forward to singing the most. So again, let me know who you got in the comments. If you have any questions for me, send me a DM or leave me a comment. Even if you need help with getting started with journaling, I got you. And like I mentioned before, make sure that you go to my portfolio and check out my sister's journal. The link is in the bio Also, if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, or just working with me as far as the other services that I offer or checking out my digital products, all of that will be in the link in bio. And whenever it is time for me to do another Let It Go Wednesday, you will be the first to know whenever I drop that info. However, you can sign up to be a part of my mailing list, so you can be like one of the first to know whenever I plan to do another one, because the holidays are coming up, so I don't want to announce an official schedule, even though I did tease one in my previous video, but I'm still figuring things out. But definitely I will have this format to where Let It Go Wednesday will be Wednesday, then Pick My Brain will be on Thursday. So, but make sure those are different accounts. This is at She Writes Masterpieces. Pick My Brain is over on at Masterpieces Writing. So, again, thank you guys for sticking it out with me, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Bye.